Have you ever heard a ghost story so compelling, so widely witnessed, that even major corporations couldn't completely bury it? Today, we're diving into one of the most famous and chilling aviation mysteries of all time. The ghosts of Flight 401. It was December 29th, 1972. Eastern Airlines' Flight 401, a brand new Lockheed L1011 TriStar, was on its final approach to Miami International Airport. On board were 163 passengers and 13 crew members. It was a clear night, perfect for landing. But something went terribly wrong. While the crew was preoccupied with a malfunctioning landing gear indicator lighted tiny, burnt-out bulb worth just $12, the autopilot was accidentally disengaged. The massive jetliner slowly, imperceptibly, began to lose altitude. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was too late. Flight 401 plunged into the Florida Everglades, disintegrating on impact. 101 people lost their lives in the tragedy, including the pilot, Captain Robert Bob Loft, and the flight engineer, Donald Don Repo. It was a horrific accident, one that shook the aviation world. But the story of Flight 401 didn't end in the swampy darkness of the Everglades. In fact, for many, that's where it truly began. In the months following the crash, Eastern Airlines did what any practical company would do. To save money, they salvaged usable parts from the wreckage of Flight 401. Components like galley ovens, electronic systems, and other interior fittings were carefully recovered, inspected, cleaned, and installed into other planes in their L1011 fleet. Specifically, they were placed into sister ships of the crashed plane. And that's when things started to get really strange. Soon, unsettling reports began to trickle in from flight crews across the Eastern Airlines network. They were seeing things. Or rather, they were seeing people who shouldn't have been there. The most frequent apparitions were those of Captain Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo, the two crew members who died in the cockpit. Imagine you're a flight attendant preparing for takeoff. You do a final cabin check and see a man in a Captain S uniform sitting in first class. You approach him, concerned, because you know all crew members should be in their designated positions. As you get closer, you recognize him as Captain Loft. He looks at you, and then, right before your eyes, he simply vanishes. This exact scenario was reported by a flight captain and two flight attendants. They were so shaken that they canceled the flight. Later, during a cabin search, they positively identified the apparition as Loft from a photograph. Another time, on a flight to Miami, a flight attendant saw the face of Don Repo looking out at her from the galley oven. She called over to other crew members, including a flight engineer. They both saw the face too, pale and worried. They heard him speak, a muffled warning, "Watch out for fire on this airplane." The three were terrified. What's even crazier, later in that same flight, the engine did experience a serious failure, forcing an emergency landing. The warning, it seemed, had been real. These weren't isolated incidents. The sightings became almost routine. Repo's ghost was frequently seen in the hill hole. Over 24 credible witnesses, including pilots, flight officers, even airline executives, reported seeing Loft or Repo. The apparitions never seemed malicious. In fact, they often appeared concerned, as if they were still on duty, trying to ensure the safety of the aircraft and its passengers. They would point out minor mechanical issues that, upon inspection, turned out to be real problems. It was as if their spirits were tied to the salvaged parts of the doomed aircraft, their sense of duty so strong it transcended death itself. Naturally, Eastern Airlines was not thrilled about these stories. A haunted fleet is not good for business. The company's management tried to suppress the rumors. They officially denied everything. They allegedly warned employees that anyone caught spreading these ghost stories could be fired. They even ordered the removal of all the salvaged parts from the L1011S, according to some insiders. They even arranged for an exorcism to be performed on one of the planes. Despite the corporate clampdown, the stories persisted. They were documented in books, most famously The Ghost of Flight 401 by John G. Fuller, who interviewed countless witnesses and compiled their chilling testimonies. The story was so compelling, it was even made into a TV movie. So, what are we to make of all this? Skeptics, of course, have their explanations. They suggest it was a case of mass hysteria, fueled by the grief and trauma of the crash. They argue that tired, stressed flight crews working in dimly lit cabins could have easily mistaken shadows or reflections for figures. The human mind is incredibly powerful at seeing patterns and faces where none exist, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. The power of suggestion, especially after the first few stories circulated, could have easily led others to believe they were seeing ghosts too. But can that explain everything? Can it explain the sheer number of witnesses, many of whom were seasoned, known-sense professionals? Can it explain how multiple people saw the same apparition at the same time? Or how the ghostly figures were positively identified as Loft and Repo by people who knew them? And what about the warnings? The ghost of Don Repo, warning of a fire just before an engine failed, was that just a coincidence? The airline's reaction is also telling. If these were just silly rumors, why go to such lengths to silence employees? Why remove all the salvaged parts from the fleet? Their actions seem to suggest they took the reports far more seriously than they let on publicly. Perhaps they couldn't explain it, and the only solution was to get rid of the physical links to the tragic crash. After the parts were removed, the sightings of Bob Loft and Don Repo reportedly stopped. It was as if their restless spirits, finally separated from the remnants of their final flight, were at peace. The story of the ghosts of Flight 401 remains one of the most enduring and debated paranormal cases of the 20th century. It's a story that blurs the line between tragic reality and the supernatural. It forces us to ask, could a sense of responsibility be so powerful that it lingers after death? Could pieces of a machine retain an echo of the human tragedy they witnessed? Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the tale is a powerful reminder of the human element in every tragedy. It's a story of a dedicated crew, a catastrophic failure, and a haunting legacy that flew through the skies for years. It's a testament to the idea that some stories, like some spirits, simply refuse to fade away. What do you think? Was this a case of mass suggestion and grief? Or were the spirits of a dedicated flight crew really watching over their fellow aviators? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy diving into mysteries like this, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Fly safe.